If a clinician is not seeing the number of clients that you're expecting to see them based on that salary, right? Hopefully it's based on data and numbers and that it makes financial sense for them. If they were expected to see 25 clients per week and all of a sudden that slips to 22 clients per week, that has a big financial impact. So I think for me, when there's a salary in place, there always has to be a financial benefit to the practice, right? Maybe the salary is a little bit lower than you would otherwise pay them if they were commission, so that there's a shared risk element there. So in either case, I always recommend that there be an allocation for payroll within the business, simply because in the context of a group practice, payroll is going to be the single largest expense in that practice. And so I like to actually separate OpEx and payroll into two separate accounts. So that way you can really easily identify, where is there a problem? Where is the little alarm bell going off? Or like, hey, there's not enough money in payroll. What happened? What did we do? How did things change this much that we were not able to make payroll? It's a great diagnosis tool for practice owners.
Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo, using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Today, we have another Profit First professional on the show to talk about Profit First for therapists. But you don't need to run a therapy practice to benefit from today's show, because a lot of the concepts are transferable to your business. Every industry uses a different way to allocate their dollars. The key is to finding a way that works for you in your business and realizing that no matter what type of business you are in, the system works. It just has to be adapted to work for you. Juile Harris is an expert in Profit First who's helped hundreds of private practice owners gain financial freedom. She's founder of GreenOak Accounting, the country's largest firm serving the mental health industry. Juile's an accountant, consultant, speaker, and author of Profit First for Therapists and hosts of the Therapy for Your Money podcast. Let's meet Juile. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Juile Harris. It's great to have you join us today.
Glad to be here.
Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yes, I'm an accountant. I'm the owner of GreenOak Accounting, which is the largest accounting firm specialized in working with therapists in private practice. And I'm also the author of Profit First for Therapists. So that's me in a nutshell.
And we love other Profit First people to come share their journey. And each industry has a slight twist on Profit First in the way they implement it. And it's always good to learn how different industries do it, because it might be something adaptable to your business, just because you do things a little bit different than everyone else in your particular industry.
Yeah, there's some little golden nuggets in each Profit First derivative, right?
There very much are. So how did you learn about Profit First?
Well, so when I was starting to even think about starting my own accounting firm, I honestly never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I wanted to work for someone else. But I was just at a point in my life where I needed some flexibility. My kids were really small, and that wasn't how the industry was set up at that point. I mean, accounting has been pretty strict. Like, you're in the office, you do it this way, right? There wasn't a whole lot of leeway. And I came from a family where my mom was a serial entrepreneur. She loved starting a new business. And unfortunately, none of her businesses ever were successful. So my childhood was, the business starts and then the business fails and all the things that go with it, right? Another business starts and fails. Each time for my sister and I, that meant a new home, a new school, new friends, right? Everything changed. And so I saw firsthand the ups and downs of business ownership. And so when I was starting to even just consider that, before I even said it out loud, I thought, I cannot possibly do this to my family. Like, I need to make sure that if I start a business, it adds value to the family versus taking resources away from it. And one fateful day, I happened upon Profit First, and I decided this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to start my accounting firm and make sure that I build profit into the equation. And that's ultimately what I did with a profitable firm from day one, pretty much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I too started directly with Profit First as well.
Directly, yeah, on day one.
Day one, and it works.
Yeah. And so for my firm, that grew from, firm of just one person, just me, to we're now 35 people across the US, and all thanks to Profit First. We've grown at the speed of cash every step of the way.
That's an interesting statement. Grown at the speed of cash. Well, they don't even know what the speed of cash is. Mm-hmm. Right? They just go, we got to grow. Let's grow. But They don't look at the speed of cash.
What credit card can I get? What line of credit? What this and that? And that's not to say that I don't have credit cards, a line of credit, right? I have those things, but I always, when I work on growth, it's always based on what resources do we have available? How can we save up to make this work? Because then I know I'm secure. My team is secured. We always have the resources available for us.
Very nice. So there's one thing I was going to say, it's unique to therapists, but it's not. It has to do with money mindsets, and it has to do,
yes.
Therapists are like, well, it's all about helping people, not making money. And I think different parts of medicine may have that same philosophy. Social workers may have that same philosophy, or certain business owners, depending on where they are, may have that same philosophy. But at the end of the day, if you don't make money, you can't help people.
Yeah, it's so interesting about this industry. My team and I have been working with therapists for many, many years now, but I've obviously worked in accounting for other industries where I've never had to convince a construction business owner that his business deserved to be profitable. And yet I feel like every day we are trying to convince our clients, like, your practice deserves to be profitable. You have to make money, and you even deserve to make good money so that you can do your best work in the world. It is in service to the clients they see, their community, their team, if they have one. But it's interesting because there's not a lot of industries where you have to convince someone that they should make money.
I will say this about the construction industry. I think a lot of times, and I see this in a lot of industries, not just them, just because you mentioned it, they're afraid to properly price. With therapists, there's a fee schedule from an insurance company. So You're given a price, which is a problem. A lot of these other business owners are sometimes afraid to charge what they need to charge to be profitable.
That's a good point, where sometimes even if they wanted to, they can't. And we're seeing more so over the last few years, a lot of mental health therapists are dropping insurance panels, maybe just only keeping the few that are most profitable, then going into private pay, and sometimes dropping insurance altogether. But that is still, I would say, the exception more than the norm, where they're able to charge a rate that's significantly higher than insurance. But unfortunately, this is just one industry that's not particularly valued by insurance companies. And so the rates are fairly low, considering how high of an education everyone needs to have to be licensed as a therapist.
And so you're working within a constrained system, which there are a lot of business owners for a variety of reasons who work within constrained systems. And all I say to them is, if you're in a constrained system, then you've got to learn constraints. You've got to be extremely lean and nimble and work your way through it and figure it out.
Yeah, we have to work within that model, right? If a practice owner decides they are going to take insurance, that's the route that they're going to take. Typically, we're going to see a smaller marketing spend, right? So they're able to be lean there because the referrals are just coming in from the insurance company. But you have to look at everything else, right? And sometimes when it comes to hiring team members, the math has to make sense. We've seen some really crazy things over the last few years as, the pandemic increased demand on the mental health industry. That has been a really good thing where, people have had a wait list or there's no shortage of money in that industry. There's a shortage of people. And it's unfortunate that they're not able to help everyone that needed help sometimes. But that means that therapists were able to try to charge a much higher rate, right? So we saw a lot of our clients coming to us saying, hey, I'm interviewing these therapists and I want to make an offer to someone, but someone across town is offering them a fee structure that's this, and I don't think I can match that, can I? And we would have to run the numbers and say, absolutely not. You cannot match this because you're going to have to take money out of your own pocket, see more clients yourself to pay them this rate, right? There's not enough to cover overhead, profit, let alone any kind of salary to you. So this doesn't make sense. But that's kind of how the industry has shifted over the last few years.
It's funny because going back to where we started, it seems like the therapist is okay making their employer pay. They just don't want the patient to pay. And there seems to be a massive disconnect with the understanding that if I see a patient today, I don't know when the money's coming in from the insurance company. I mean, it can be a long time in waiting. And the other thing is, and I don't think people outside of the industry realize this, there are clawbacks.
Absolutely.
From insurance companies come back to you 2 years later and say, oh, 50,000, and they swipe it right out of your bank account and say you did something wrong or you didn't do this properly. And if all the T's aren't crossed and the I's dotted, they have the ability to do that again.
And we also see kind of seasonally, we often see at the very beginning of the calendar year and then mid-year at the end of the fiscal year for many insurance companies, they'll just stop paying or slow way down. So whereas insurance typically comes in, every Thursday you get a payment from this specific company, all of a sudden for a week or two, that stops coming in. Like what is happening here? This is not a good situation, right? And there's not a whole lot that practice owners can actually do about it. Or sometimes the insurance company might say, well, actually, we want you to fill out this note this way. You forgot this part of the code that they never asked for before, but all of a sudden this is now a requirement. So you're going back and adding that to 10, 20, 100, 500 claims waiting to get paid. And that's just, it's hard to be in an industry where you are beholden to the insurance company, but that's how mental health works in many cases.
And that is a shame. That's why I try and tell them as much as you can get away from insurance, or at least work with the best insurance companies and learn to say no to everybody else. And
I feel like that forces the market, right? When practices are able to shop the market and say, you know what, I'm not going to go with you because your rate is so much lower than everyone else. That sends a message to the insurance company that like, this is not going to fly. We're not going to let this happen. And if you want to have providers in this market, you're going to need to increase your rates to something that's sustainable. I think that's great to be in a position to do that whenever that's possible.
So every industry has their own kind of profit first allocations. And I know in your book, you do it more based on the size of the practice and kind of how the practice is structured. Can you give us a quick rundown of that?
Yeah. So I look at private practice in 4 main sizes. The first is solo practice, which is kind of self-explanatory. Usually it's the owner who is the only clinician in the practice. So there may be an admin or someone else doing some of the administrative work, but the owner is the only one doing the clinical work, seeing clients. Then we have a small group practice. I provide some dollar ranges, right? That's usually going to be somewhere from 150,000 to maybe 400,000, somewhere within that range, depending on if they're private pay or insurance based. And one of the big characteristics here is that the owner is still seeing 50% or more of the clients in the practice. So as far as like number of sessions, There may be one or two part-timers or full-timer, but the owner is still doing a significant piece of the clinical work here. Then we kind of shift over to that medium group practice. This is a size where there typically are going to be, 4 to 10 or so clinicians, all the way up to about $1 million in annual revenue. There's way more work being done by people other than the owner at this point. So there's just a shifting responsibilities for the owner where they're moving into more of a clinical director role than just a lead clinician, right? They're spending much more time working on the business rather than in the business. And then when we go to that large group practice, for me, that starts somewhere around like 750, 800,000, goes all the way up to about $5 million in annual revenue. And that is the large group practice. One of the big characteristics here is the addition of a leadership level. So typically around that $1 million in annual revenue mark, there's just too many people in the business for the owner to be the only person leading. So there's sometimes the addition of a clinical supervisor, site supervisor, a formal clinical director, and then the owner is shifting more into that visionary role at that point, right? So where they're taking off maybe some of the executive functions and just doing the visionary work. So that's kind of how I think about it. And then we've also found through years of research that the allocations for Profit First just shift very consistently within those practice sizes. So we are able to provide allocations for each size of practice.
And there's always targets. There's a lot of different industry books now. I'm surprised at how many are coming out.
Yeah.
And you do your best, or if you can get your own industry standards from somewhere else, that at least gives you something to work backwards from. One of the things that's kind of unique in this industry is that there's two main models, one being a salaried model and then one being a percentage model. And how do you account for the differences when you do it?
Yeah, well, in the book, I actually talk about 5 compensation models that we see often. So as you mentioned, salary, definitely commission. We also see a fixed fee per session where there's a specific dollar amount per session. There's an hourly model that tends to happen in states where you're required to pay for every minute worked, right? Where that might make more sense. And then there's a base salary plus commission, right? We're kind of a hybrid where there is some part of the comp that is a salary and some part that is flexible depending on what money is coming in and out. But when we talk about, salary versus commission, I think commission is going to always be less risk for the practice, whereas a salary might be ultimately more profitable. It can be or has the opportunity to be more profitable, but the business is taking on a significant amount of risk because if a clinician is not seeing the number of clients that you're expecting to see them based on that salary, right? Hopefully it's based on data and numbers and that it makes financial sense for them. If they were expected to see 25 clients per week and all of a sudden that slips to 22 clients per week, that has a big financial impact. So I think for me, when there's a salary in place, there always has to be a financial benefit to the practice, right? Maybe the salary is a little bit lower than you would otherwise pay them if they were commission so that there's a shared risk element there. So in either case, I always recommend that there be an allocation for payroll within the business simply because in the context of a group practice, payroll is going to be the single largest expense in that practice. And so I like to actually separate OPEX and payroll into 2 separate accounts. So that way you can really easily identify where is there a problem? Where is the little alarm bell going off? Like, hey, there's not enough money in payroll. What happened? What did we do? How did things change this much that we were not able to make payroll? It's a great diagnosis tool for practice owners.
And that makes a lot of sense. I've noticed that when I have clients that are not using a percentage basis, there's 2 problems. One, you have to make sure that you're getting utilization of your employee, which means you've got to track it every single month. The problem is somebody goes on vacation, utilization that month that week goes to 0, or you have no-show patients. And then it comes back to, well, how do you bill for no-shows or, cancels 36 hours out, in which case you may not charge them. But now how do you refill the spot and keep that well? And then if you're paying on a percentage basis and you've got offices, that's an empty office.
Right.
And if somebody isn't pulling their load in that office or whatever, then that creates issues. So each of the systems has its pluses and minuses. I think the most important thing is you've got to track it and you've got to see how it's working for you. And for some of my clients, we do that by person. So they'll look at the roles and what that person wants and how they want to be paid and what the flexibility. So they might have different models within the company based on the person that's filling that particular role.
Yeah. And one of the custom reports that we've developed at my accounting firm for our clients is we pull the data from the EHR and we look at what is the utilization for each person on the team? What is our expectation versus what are they bringing in? Because I think commission comp is still likely the most popular in the industry. There certainly is a shift, again, since the pandemic towards a salary because people are increasingly looking for certainty, right? There's a safety in that salary. But I think with the salary, you, as the practice owner, you have to be willing to coach your team member on their performance, right? You have to be able to say, to be willing and able to say, you're not meeting the expectations that we have for this salary. This is not working. We need to increase your caseload, right? And put the steps in place to fix this, or else you're losing even more money. And that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. Just out of curiosity, do you have a target utilization rate for a full-time person? Because they can't see 40 hours of clients.
Right. We always recommend that a full-time person see at least 25 clients per week, or not at least 25 clients is kind of the standard. That's what we found to really be the standard in the industry. In a practice where they're offering health insurance, for example, your requirement is typically that they work 30 hours a week. If you see 25 clients, it is a reasonable expectation that you're doing 30 hours worth of work. If you're seeing 22 clients a week, are you really doing 8 hours of administrative work? That starts to get a little more dicey. So for a full-time team member, most of our clients are usually looking for at least 25 hours per week, but that usually means you're scheduled more than 25, right? You might be scheduled 27, 30 hours of availability on the schedule, actually scheduled for 27 so that 25 clients actually show up and are seen by you. That's typically what we look at.
And that's based on a 40-hour work week, correct?
So that's hours. Usually we're looking at least 30 hours of availability on the calendar because I find that almost all of our clients say it is unreasonable to expect a therapist to see 40 hours of clients per week, 40 clinical hours, right? So
correct.
So almost never. So usually we're closer to that 30 hours on the calendar and they're seeing about 25 clients during that time. So that might be, depending on the team member, that might be 4 days, that might be 3 longer days, that might be 5 days, but that's typically how they look at it.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And those are the things you have to look at is utilization. And then I tell people to share utilization numbers. So, I have clients in other industries and one of our clients has repair people. And so they started posting the utilization of hours billed, same concept, to how many hours in the day. And certain service people started working more.
Oh, yeah.
Because the numbers were posted.
Because it's public information.
It's public information.
I'm also a firm believer that you should look at utilization for your physical space as well. In a practice that is, of course, not virtual, once that time, you have a certain number of rooms or offices in the space. Once that time is gone, you don't get it back. So we're usually looking for at least 6 hours per day per room as the goal. I'd love to see that more. We have some clients who aim for 12, right? In a high rent area where you're stacking people, right? You might have morning shift and afternoon shift in that same physical space, but it's important to look at that space because sometimes our clients will come to us and say, Julie, I think we need to expand. We don't have space anymore. Well, do you really have a space problem or do you have a scheduling problem? Because those are two very different things. And before you go and invest and look for new space and build it out and furnish it and all that, we've got to look at the real numbers and what's actually going on in this space. And can you make more with the space that you already have?
Well, so just based on the numbers you talked about, if I have a full-time person and they're billing 25 hours, that means 15 hours, they don't need to be in a private office.
Exactly. Yeah.
They can be in another space to do the notes and the other things that they need to do.
Yeah. Or do that from home even. Absolutely. And often in therapy, Saturdays are really easy to schedule, right? They're harder to find people to work Saturdays, but it's easy to get clients in. So you could possibly have someone use an office Monday through Thursday and then have someone else do Friday, Saturday, right? Maybe you have a part-timer in that space, but you're using the space even more efficiently for a shift that was not previously covered. And that's actually easy to schedule clients in. Like that's a win-win-win.
That it is. So let's shift gears a little bit. One of the things you talk about in the book that I don't see talked about as often is the 5 emotional phases of Profit First.
Yes. You don't see it talked about because that is all mine. Again, from years of experience, seeing clients kind of go through this emotional shift, right? I like to think that we're maybe a little more in tune with our emotions as accountants just because we work with so many therapists, but we've seen like all the different difficult things that clients go through. And so the first phase is excitement, right? That typically happens like after someone they've read the book, they're excited, like, I believe in this, I'm going to start it. So we go in and we do it and they're ready to make changes. And this is a great time to take action, right? Find a Profit First professional in PFP. Go open up the bank accounts, like get all the pieces set up in place, take the instant assessment, do all the things that need to get done. But once that happens, we often notice we kind of go into this resistance phase, even when we're supporting clients. I'm curious to see if you've experienced this too, Rocky, where you're giving the clients, like, here are your allocations, here's the transfers this week. And then there starts to be some resistance of like, oh, but what about this? Or I don't think this is going to work. Or I don't know about this. Let me just kind of do this. Maybe I'm going to do this my way, right? Or you send them, here's the transfers for this week. And they do something that's completely different from that, right? I know we've seen that happen plenty of times. So in this resistance phase, there's like, is this really working? And the truth is it's starting to work. And that's the beauty of it. But it feels uncomfortable, right? That first phase of like, I'm having to do some difficult things in my business and make some changes. And that's not easy. Then we move into the overwhelm phase where we're getting sometimes like frantic emails like, is this really working? There's not going to be enough money in my OPEX account. What is going on? And listeners, you don't see, but Rocky's laughing because he's done this before, right? Where this is where like it can feel a little bit uncomfortable because change is uncomfortable, right? Doing the right thing. This is the phase that I kind of imagine as a Rocky movie montage, right? Where you're running up the steps. There's some pump it up music. Like this is the hard stuff that no one wants to do, but you've got to do it. And then as you push through that difficult phase, you get to the aha moment. I imagine this is like the sky is opening up, the sun is shining down on you. And like, this is the moment where maybe a business owner is making their first quarterly estimated tax payment without having to make any sacrifices because there was money in the tax account, where they're able to take a profit distribution and do something really fun with their family that they haven't been able to do before. And that's when they start to see like, okay, this is why I was going through the muck to get to this good stuff. And then the last phase is acceptance, where your life will never be the same. And you're the one shouting on the rooftops like, hey, have you tried Profit First? And you're saying it in Facebook groups and telling people you need to order this book, right? And you're getting people on the boat with you because you just love it so much. And it has changed your business and it has changed your life. Like it has done for, at this point, millions of people. So have you seen your clients go through these phases?
I do. A lot of them get stuck usually when they're at a point where things aren't working well and they can't make allocations. They're like, I need to put all my money in OPEX to cover payroll.
Yeah.
And we go through that. And what that has really done though, is it's taught them we need to build reserves. Like, oh, this is why you said I need a reserve in like some of them are surprised that, they're on the downswing. Like, it's like, hello, this is a roller coaster ride. Where have you been?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's ups and downs. You're going to have downs. If you have cash in the bank, yeah, we'll scream on the way down, but we know we'll be able to go back up.
Yeah. Yeah. And with these, as we were talking about earlier, with sometimes insurance problems, okay, insurance deposits didn't come in. We have to make payroll. Yes, that's a problem, right? The allocation isn't going to cover payroll. But this problem would have happened whether you were doing Profit First or not. And I would always argue you're in a better financial position when you are doing Profit First and at least have some reserve, some extra cash, something to pull from than if you weren't.
But what happens is because there was no money in the account, because there was less money in the account, you're now alerted that the check didn't come in. Wait, why am I tight? Oh, a check didn't come in. What insurance company didn't come in? And we had that with a client where they actually started investigating because we had shortages in cash. And they're like, this insurance company said they paid us and they didn't.
Yeah, that's such precious information. We've had clients self-diagnose a billing issue weeks, I would even say months earlier than they would have otherwise, right? Where they're looking at that bank account. And if they make a transfer every other Friday, for example, they might be looking and saying like, hey, usually there's this much by now and there's not. What's going on, right? So they go investigate. Oh, my biller's missing in action. Or, hey, all these denied claims have not been worked. What's going on? But if it was mixed with everything else, it would take so much longer to notice like something is up. So sometimes it hurts more because you're seeing it so much faster, but you're able to take action and not keep going down that spiral. I think that's an amazing benefit of it. And I don't know if it was intended that way, but it helps diagnose issues so much faster.
I believe it was intended that way. So yeah. I'll go with yes. Yes, it was.
Okay.
Speaking of success, do you have some favorite success stories?
Yes. I mean, there's so many. I think of one of my clients, Stacy, whose story is actually in the book. Like I remember her not being able to make payroll, right? Like I remember that overwhelm phase and at the very beginning where sometimes clients come to us, at least certainly for my firm, when they're in a moment of pain, right? They start Profit First at a moment of financial difficulty. And while Profit First certainly is always able to help, it is not a magic wand. It will not magically fix all the problems in the business. It will often bring them to light. And so going from a situation of not being able to make payroll, having to have really difficult conversations with clinicians around compensation, right? Because the compensation model just was not working, to now years later being able to pay in cash for her child's college, and all back tax debt has been paid off. There were stacks of envelopes from the IRS on her desk. When I met her, she would not open them. She put them in the mail to us. And we just opened them all. And honestly, like we see IRS letters all the time, but there's always this sigh of relief of like, okay, I finally know what's going on. And so going from, I have back tax debt from years and years, I can't make payroll, to a situation where, tax debt is all gone. Taxes are all paid in full. Child is in college, paid cash. Like that is just such a different life altogether. The level of stress is completely different. And that's the one that comes to mind right now because it's just such a big transformation.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway here is for those of you listening, the people who come to us are in a big mess. Like you don't need to be perfect to get our help. We're used to seeing IRS issues, excessive debt, all these things. We're used to it. This is who we help. So don't feel afraid to say, oh my God, I'm in a mess. I don't want to go talk to these people.
That's what we do.
You're our ideal client, but you're who we help.
And Rocky, I would say, my team and I, we often say this is a no judgment zone, right? You are here today. This is what it is. And let us help you. It's not unusual for clients to cry on our meetings. Like money is emotional. It really is. And we're here for that, right? We're not trained as therapists. I cannot do what my clients do, but we can help with the money pieces and hold space for them when they're having issues and help them through all of those issues, right? It wasn't an overnight fix to, get all that back tax debt paid off. And there was a payment plan and, tax allocations and penalty abatements. There was all this other work behind the scenes done, but like, that's what we like to do. That makes it worth it to have a client say, I have never slept better at night because I'm getting to do all the things I wanted to do in my life. That's amazing.
That is amazing. And I will say some of my clients view me as their financial therapist. I'm not a therapist, but we talk money in a way that they can't talk money with anybody else.
Yeah. And sometimes being a business owner is lonely, right? have these difficult and sometimes amazing situations that maybe or maybe not you can talk to your team about, right? If a business owner is in financial difficulty, they probably don't want to share that information with their team. They don't want them to worry, but it's so nice to have someone, financial therapist or, a good accountant to talk to and say, this is the issue I'm going through. Can you help me? Or can you tell me if I'm on the right track? Like that is so precious for any business owner out there.
Too often the business owner is looking across the street and going, look at how nice their trucks or their offices and look at how busy they are. It must be great to be that successful. And we're like, do you know what those trucks cost? Do you know how expensive his monthly nut is? Do you know he's negative? No, you don't see that from the outside. You don't see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, especially when you work a lot within the same industry, I can tell you sometimes the practices that look very profitable, they're not always, right? Like we never, ever, ever call out a specific client, but everything is not always what it seems. Just because someone looks profitable does not mean that it actually is. So the comparison game is not helpful.
And in the construction industry, we usually say that the nicer the trucks, the greater the likelihood of bankruptcy.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, those trucks are expensive.
That's
really
why
expensive.
They don't realize how much they have to sell to pay for that truck. If people would like to learn more about you, connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I would love that. You can find my company at greenoakaccounting.com. We always offer a free consultation to anyone who's interested in learning more about our services. I would also love for you to check out the book, Profit First for Therapists. It is available on our website, profitfirstfortherapists.com, as well as anywhere you buy books online, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all of those great things available in paperback, Kindle, and Audible as well.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rocky.
In Profit First world, we all love to support each other because we're more interested in supporting you and getting you the success you deserve. Find one of us who you feel confident you can work with and take the leap. We're used to getting people coming to us messy. Their books are a mess. They might be losing money. They may not even have books. We've seen it all. This is normal. Unfortunately, it is normal, which is not good. We also see people who are doing well and want to move to the next level. Wherever you are, we customize our services to help you achieve your goals and dreams. And quite frankly, I don't want you to work harder because you don't need more resources, including more of your time. You need to be more resourceful. Remember to focus on the bottom line.
If you'd like for us to be a part of your profitability journey, we have different programs available ranging from do-it-yourself to one-on-one coaching. Our course, The Profit Blueprint, teaches you everything you need to know to transform your profitability. There are 3 different tiers ranging from DIY to done with you so that businesses of all sizes can get the support that's best. Join the waitlist in the show notes to get more information and be a part of the next cohort. If you want a done for you service, you can hire us as your chief profitability officers. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $10 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
This episode of the Profit Answer Man podcast is brought to you by SMBpodcastnetwork.com. The network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focus on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit www.smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more great shows and easily subscribe to be notified of new episodes. It's a great way to discover quality content. If you've discovered us via the network, then I hope you enjoy today's show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss our episodes. Remember to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about how to live the ultimate life and be the best business owner you can be. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.